Now, Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, always glad to have you with us. Later on, we're going to talk about Dryvit, an insulation manufacturer in Rhode Island. It's been around for almost half a century. We'll talk about how they've survived and thrived and some of the stuff they're working on today. But right now, I'm very pleased to be joined by Buck Harris. He is the Vice President of the Community Investment Corporation, and we're going to talk a bit about what they do over there. Buck, thanks for being here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I'll start with the easiest question, the one that comes out of that intro. What do you do at Community Investment Corporation? What is it?
We do small business lending. Basically, we're a small business administration intermediary. The SBA doesn't loan money to small businesses. It loans money to intermediaries like us, and we turn around and loan it to businesses. Or it provides guarantees on loans to incentivize banks and alternative lenders like CIC to get that money on the street.
Because yeah, the SBA, people hear SBA loans, but you can't call the SBA and just get a loan from them. Somebody has to do the loan, right?
Right, because the SBA got out of the underwriting business.
Did they used to do it?
They did, yes. Many years ago, they underwrote their own loans, and they decided to outsource that. And so, consequently, you've got a lot of very dedicated professionals who can get these loans underwritten and hopefully get some money on the street.
So one thing that's interesting about you guys, as I was reading about you, you're a nonprofit, the Community Investment Corporation.
Correct.
When people think of a lender or a loan, they think of a bank, a for-profit, enterprise giving out money. So why are you set up as a nonprofit, and what difference does that make for how you do your business?
In order to be an intermediary, I believe you have to be a nonprofit. We're privately held. We've been doing SBA lending since the 70s, and the company started off as the New Haven Investment Corporation from Connecticut. And we have been doing business in Connecticut all that time, and started with one loan program in Rhode Island in about 2003, 2004. And now we've got 3 loan programs here, and I'm the person who's kind of driving the bus on these Rhode Island programs, and I love Rhode Island. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell me a bit about that, because you're based in Hamden, Connecticut, but as you say, you've had this Rhode Island business about a decade now, or this loan portfolio. Is it a significant amount of Rhode Island loan activity you're doing now?
Not significant yet, but every loan that we do is significant for the person who gets it, right?
That's a good answer, yeah. Your PR chief will be happy with that one.
Well, that's me too.
Oh, there you go.
I have to like myself, I wear a lot of hats. We started with what's called the SBA 504 loan, which is a credit enhancement for banks. So if you owned your own small business and you wanted to buy a building and move your business in there, and it was going to be at least 51% occupied by your company, the SBA would do part of the loan, and the bank would do part of the loan, and you would do a smaller percent of the loan than you would do if it were through a traditional bank. So instead of a 20 or 25% cash input on the small business owner's side, it's only a 10%, or a startup business might be 15%.
Presumably making it more feasible for them to take a loan.
More feasible, and even if you've got the cash, why not hang on to it? Again, from an economic development perspective, the more money you have to reinvest in your business, the more your business can grow. And so that incentive to hold on to more money is a strong one for any small business owner.
And I want to you mentioned being an intermediary, to make that more concrete for people. You're really partner with banks. I mean, your advisory board committee, Bank Rhode Island, Washington Trust, Citizens Bank, executives from those places are on there. Yep. So how does that relationship work between the traditional banks and what you do at Community Investment?
Well, the idea is we're here to support the lending community. So we really want to be a bank partner. So on that 504 program that I was just talking about, the bank may not want to do that deal if they have to do 80% of it. There might be some issues with the company that make them a little uneasy. So they only have to do 50%, and we come in and do 40%. Borrower puts in 10, bank's really happy. They can keep that borrower, they can maintain that relationship, and they can get that loan done. We have 2 other programs that are smaller. One is called Community Advantage, and that's $50,000 to $250,000, and one's called Microloan, and that's $2,500. I brought my checkbook in case you need a quick, up to $50,000.
I'm getting married. I might need it for the venue at this rate. Yeah,
definitely. We just had to set you up with an LLC for that.
That's a great idea.
But your wife is a guarantor, so we get everybody in there. So that's $2,500 to $50,000, and again, the bank can't do the loan, let's say, because the person might have had an illness in the family and a credit hiccup, or maybe there's just not enough collateral for them to do the loan, something that makes them uncomfortable. But they still want to do business with that person, and they want to support economic development. So they can turn that loan over to us. We do the underwriting. The bank keeps the depository accounts, they keep the merchant accounts, and they keep the relationship. And we bring that business along with a lot of free technical analysis or business consulting support, so that at some point the bank can get them back, get them the line of credit they need, or get them the bigger loan, and they move on to becoming what we call a bankable business at that point.
Now, when I think of the traditional bank, they have their deposit base, and they use that base to do their loans. You're working with the SBA. Do you get a certain they give you a block of money every year and say, give loans out with this? Do you go to them and say, I have this opportunity, give me a loan? How do you get your capital?
It's actually, for the 3 programs, all 3 of them work differently.
Oh, okay.
So for that 504 program, we don't take any risk as the underwriting partner in that. That's all on the SBA. Those loans don't even show up on our books. But we're still the fiduciary. We have the fiduciary responsibility of underwriting the loans properly and getting them approved by the SBA. For the Community Advantage program, we actually have a private loan with a bank of our own, a line of credit, and we use that to actually turn around and then loan with a small spread to the business owners, and we get a guarantee on those deals. The Microloan Program is a totally different animal. We actually borrow the money in like $750,000 to $1 million tranches from the SBA at completely our risk, and then turn around and loan it to the small businesses at our risk. And if they don't pay us back, we still have to pay back the loan. But the incentive is we get a grant, and the grant pays for people like me to work with small business owners and set them up for success. So if we don't do a good job on the front end, helping them to create a business model with the right marketing, the right pricing, the right location, if that's the situation, then we're going to lose the money. So it's a high incentive for us to make sure that we're writing good loans in that program.
Interesting. All right, we're going to talk more with Buck Harris about the work they do at the Community Investment Corporation after a break. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. Later on in the show, we're going to talk with the president and CEO of Dryvit. They make innovative insulation products, really some interesting stuff. And they've been around almost half a century around. But right now, we're talking to Buck Harris. He's the vice president of Community Investment Corporation, based out of Connecticut, but they're doing more work in Rhode Island on SBA loans and other types of loans. And I want to talk at you. When we were emailing before the show, you mentioned how the good stories in this kind of business are with the individual clients, which is so true with bankers. Always have lots of stories. So can you give a sense, who are your typical clients? Who are the kind of businesses you're helping?
Yeah, I mean, we have so many really amazing success stories. One would be a company called Seed Network. And Seed is a group in Stamford, Connecticut, who does work for autistic children. And Evan Shermer's the owner, and he got a $35,000 microloan to start his business and open up a small office. He was doing work as a psychologist for the school system in Stamford and saw a need for them to outsource that, and that he could be the person that could receive some of that business. He has since grown over the last 2 or 3 years. I think he has about 14 full-time employees now. We got him a second round of funding, and now he's paid us off, and he's gone back to the bank and really grown his business exponentially. Another great group would be Earthlight Technologies, and they do they started off actually with a small retail shop where they would sell you light bulbs. When the new light bulbs came out, no one knew how to use them or what they were, and they don't seem to work right for us. Right. So they coached people through that. Then they would go in and retrofit people's homes with those bulbs, and now they've gotten into big corporate contracts to redo buildings and do solar panels and all this stuff. Again, a $35,000 loan that turned into, they probably have 10 to 15
Because you're at that moment
employees.
where a lot of companies, and we have these conversations on the show all the time with companies that they're in those early, they have the idea and they have enough to feel like it could work. It's not a pipe dream, but to get that small amount of initial capital can be really quite hard. And the banks, you often hear them say it's just not profitable for them to do those.
It's too much risk at the end of the day, and it's not profitable because some of the loans are just so small. By the time, what are they going to make on it?
Yeah, especially after underwriting and all the work.
Not worth the trouble. We have a group here in Rhode Island called Fully Rooted, and they make cold pressed juices. A bunch of young kids, and they were going to farmers markets and bringing like little home juice pressers and making juice, and they couldn't make it fast enough to supply the people. So we got them a $30,000 microloan, and they bought a professional juicer, and now they make the juice ahead of time and bring it, but they have their own little ones still, so people can see what's happening. And to me, that's a business that's poised to do a lot, because cold pressed juice is kind of a new thing, and they can, again, sky's the limit for a bunch of young kids who are dedicated to a business like
let's stick with that example then. When does someone come to you, and what do they need? I could imagine people watching, they say, oh well, I could use a loan, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But what do they need to have, and why do you bet on the juice press folks? What do they have to show to you?
Well, the best businesses start in a garage for a good reason. Hopefully they started in their kitchen. They weren't making the stuff in the garage. But the idea is, start small, get a few customers, write a business plan. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be a dissertation. I'm far more interested in that there's a niche in the market, and you've already demonstrated you can get some customers. And so people that come and they want to start a business with $150,000 or $250,000, it's really hard to get those done. That's kind of the second round of funding when they're ready to go into like a wholesale environment where these guys don't want to go to the farmers markets anymore, and they've got a track record with us, and they've got a bank account that shows that they've been profitable. So really, what we're looking for is somebody who maybe has a small clientele, and they've got the industry experience. And believe it or not, one of the most important things for one of these small loans is that they've got supporting income. So if you're married and your spouse works and can pay your home bills, or at least a portion of your home bills, that's a great deal for us. So sometimes I'll have a couple come to me and say, we want to open a restaurant together. I'm like, can't somebody keep their day job?
You need the runway that you can try to do the company while of course.
You've got to buy some time. Yeah.
So I got to ask, are you folks nervous at all about, we've had low rates now for almost a decade. Is that something on your radar screen as we look at if the Fed's going to play with rates finally in December?
It doesn't affect us from a lending perspective or a risk perspective at all. As a matter of fact, that 504 rate right now is about 4.8 something on a 20-year fixed debenture for buying a building. I mean, that's an amazing deal. So even if it creeps up to 5.2 or 5.5 at some point, it doesn't really affect us from a lending perspective. If it slows down the economy, which we all want it to just get going a little bit more. It's not terrible, but we don't see the cranes going up in Providence yet, which we would love to see. If it stifles that, then of course it's just problematic for everybody.
Yeah. So hopefully the Fed will use their power wisely. All right, Buck Harris from Community Investment Corporation. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
But don't go away, because coming up next we're going to talk to the President and CEO of Dryvit. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi, and we are talking now with Mike Murphy. He is the President and CEO of Dryvit Systems, and even if you don't know the company name, you've probably seen their products out there as you go by buildings. Mike, thanks for being here.
Ted, thanks for having me.
So
Great
Mike, I love props, so I'm very excited. You've brought some examples of what you do. So tell us about what you do at Dryvit, and let's show people what we're looking at here.
Well, certainly. What we do at Dryvit is we really manufacture products that are put together in a system to build energy-efficient buildings. And so at Dryvit, if you look at this sample here, what we're building, what we're making at Dryvit is an air and moisture barrier, flashing materials, different finishes that can look like different products, but it's an acrylic finish, fiberglass mesh, and a base coat that goes over an insulation board. And so therefore we have a lightweight, energy-efficient system that goes on any type of building, whether it's commercial or residential or even in renovation.
So kind of give it different looks.
Correct. And so that's really what Dryvit's all about. We also manufacture different paints and coatings. We also manufacture different specialty finishes that can go on the inside walls of a building.
So not just the outside of the building.
Not just the outside of the building.
So how many buildings and what kinds of buildings are most common that get Dryvit, or is it everything?
Well, we probably put Dryvit on just about everything, but most common, you'll see Dryvit on buildings such as hotels, office buildings, Healthcare is a big market segment for us, retail. Anywhere where you see people that are trying to build a building that they're trying to do it within a budget, they're trying to get a good-looking building, and they're trying to think of energy efficiency. Yeah. You'll find Dryvit.
And explain more about the energy efficiency piece of this. I think that's interesting. And you've been highlighted. I think Senator Whitehouse brought you down to talk about the efficiency efforts you're doing.
Well, I think today, and especially here in Rhode Island, I mean, we're talking a lot about energy and energy efficiency and about saving energy. And that's what makes the Dryvit story so compelling, is because in 1969, when Dryvit was started right here in Rhode Island, the main focus was that we're building an energy efficient cladding. And so the idea of this system is that we put insulation on the outside of the building. And so therefore, that's why we call it outsolation versus insulation. And so the significance of Dryvit is that you put it on the outside of the building, you save in energy costs, and then you have a return on investment because of that, and then it has a low maintenance life cycle.
So kind of like rather than wait till the cold has gotten through the wall and try to block it in the wall, you're like, don't even let it get into the wall.
Well, exactly. We like to say that Dryvit is really like a blanket for your building, and that's what it does. It stops the heat and the cold from getting in. And so therefore it's a very efficient way of building a building.
And the origin story that you guys say, I guess, a guy with a dream and a bucket, right? Tell me a little about how things got started there.
Well, it really was that. The gentleman that started Dryvit in 1969, his name was Frank Morsilli, and he's a Rhode Island person from Cranston. And he went over to Germany, and he met with a chemist over at Germany that worked for BASF. And this, at the time in Europe, they were trying to renovate these older buildings that had been destroyed in the war, or build new buildings, and energy efficiency was really key at the time for them. And so he showed Frank the concept. And Frank brought that concept back over here to Rhode Island, showed it around to some friends, and they said, Frank, we don't know if that'll ever work. We like brick around here.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm a believer, and so I'm going to go for it. And he really created this industry. And so here we are 46 years later, and Dryvit has been used around the world, Dryvit and Dryvit type systems. And so he really did develop and start a whole new industry.
And give me a sense of the scale of the business. How much do you make a year? How many people do you have?
Yeah, well, right here in Rhode Island, we have 65 employees in Rhode Island. We have 400 employees worldwide. We have our headquarters is here in West Warwick in one of our manufacturing facilities. And we have 7 different manufacturing facilities around the world. And so to just give you a scale of what Dryvit's done, since Dryvit began, we estimate that we have Dryvit on over 500,000 buildings worldwide. And so it's when you think about it, it's quite prolific.
Absolutely.
It goes on a lot of buildings. And it's gone on a lot of buildings here in Rhode Island.
So what's your sense? You guys have a good zero in on the construction industry then, because they need you when they're building something. Right. What's it look like to you right now as you look out at the construction industry? Are things picking up? Are you seeing demand? What's it feel like?
Without doubt, the construction is picking up. It's like, I think we all realize, we all want it to kind of get going faster than what it is, but it is definitely getting better. But one of the most significant things is that people are starting to think about energy efficiency when they design buildings, and that's really what
Seems like
Dryvit
we've been
fits
talking
in.
about it for a long time. But do you think it's more?
Well, it's more, and I'll tell you why. It's because the energy codes have really dictated that now you have to think about building buildings energy efficiently. Just to give you an example, 40% of the energy usage in our country is in buildings. 40%, and so this is a big issue. How do we build more energy efficient buildings? And that's why today Dryvit has the solution to that issue today.
You talk about continuous insulation and how that's very important for buildings today. Talk about that. Why is that a big deal for you?
Well, it's really quite simple. The way we always built buildings, and people understand, we use studs. You have wood studs, and people are used to seeing insulation in between the studs, and then you put an interior wall and an exterior wall. Well, each one of those studs creates a thermal break. There's no insulation where the stud is. There's insulation between the stud. So when you start really looking at the effective insulation value of a building built that way, you say, wow, we're losing that much energy.
Makes you get a lot of studs in there. Yeah.
Exactly. Those thermal breaks lose a lot of energy. So now when you put insulation on the outside, you're going over all the breaks. And so now you've built a much more energy efficient
So again,
building.
get the idea of protecting it before it's starting to get into the walls.
Exactly. And so now the energy codes call out that you must use this continuous insulation, and that's really what Dryvit is. That's what outsolation is. It's insulation on the outside of a building.
So I assume you guys have had a bit of a competitive advantage, I'd hope then, because you started this in 1969, and we've been talking about efficiency more and more in recent years. I mean, did you like, finally everyone's catching up to what we've been thinking about?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. You know, every morning we wake up and we say, wow, you know, since 1969 we've been pushing this whole concept of outsolation, and here we are today, and it does obviously appear that people do finally realize the importance of building energy efficient buildings, and so yeah, Dryvit's a great solution to that. So we believe we have the right solution, you bet.
Now, whenever we have a manufacturing company on, we always talk about how people think manufacturing's gone around. It's obviously still here, your company and others. We had Max Brickle on a few weeks ago. But why has Dryvit stayed in Rhode Island? You hear about others that either couldn't hack it in the end because of competition from overseas, or Rhode Island wasn't the right place. So why are you still, and what have you done to stay vibrant?
Yeah, well, we love it here in Rhode Island, and we love the fact that our business and our roots are here in Rhode Island, and so the people and the knowledge and the experience is right here in Rhode Island, and so we love being here. The big thing, reason why Dryvit has remained successful for so long, I believe, is because we have a great culture over at the company, but we make great products, and they're not products that are just for new construction. They're products for renovation as well. And so typically, if the construction market is down, people will spend money on renovating older buildings. And so we've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's how we've really maintained our, doing very well through a long period of time, and staying right here in Rhode Island.
And you mentioned your culture. You've won the PBN Best Places to Work before. I know you're proud of that.
We are.
But I always say no company sets out, I think, to be a worst places to work. But I'm always interested in what's done differently at the companies that get those kind of awards. What kind of things do you see maybe some of your fellow CEOs doing that you try to avoid or try to have a different approach at Dryvit?
Well, I know that our approach it's really quite simple. It's a simple one. You have to make your employees feel like they're involved, and you have to listen to them, and you have to have open door management, and you have to have buy-in from everyone. And that's really how we run our business. We're open-minded to everyone. Everyone has ideas. Everyone can offer ideas. And so we think we've created an environment where people come in and they feel like they're part of something, and it really becomes family to them. And it's important for us to keep that. And so we work hard at that.
Only about 30 seconds left, Mike. Any advice for state leaders? They'd love to have more Dryvits. They'd love to have companies like yours grow. Anything you think they should be focusing on?
Well, I think that what they're focusing on right now is terrific, because they're spending a lot of time focusing and trying to allocate money to do things to save energy, and that's very, very important. There's a lot of discussion right now about renovating buildings and energy efficiency in buildings, and I'm telling you, Dryvit has the solutions for that. Right here, locally made, local workers, and so I would tell them to keep on going the way you're going.
And cover all the public buildings with Dryvit, right?
Cover them all with Dryvit. And creates jobs and creates opportunity for us here in Rhode Island.
A good pitch. All right, Mike Murphy, President and CEO of Dryvit Systems, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us this week and every week on Executive Suite. Remember, you can catch all our episodes now on iTunes as a podcast, on WPRI.com, and on the radio Sunday nights at 6 on WPRO. See you back here next week.